Okay, another variable naming video. This time talking about variable names that are so long because you need to preserve context. They're so long that they just clutter up the landscape. So what can you do? So here I have an example where I'm loading a tree from a file, and the file is named with a lot of detail because the file is in a very special form. And it may be important that the specialness of that form be conserved in the code. So here, my first gesture was to make a variable name that basically captures the whole name from the file. But this is a very long name. And if this was a big function and this variable is referred to a lot, it's going to make it really hard to visually parse. And so how can we shorten it and not lose context? So this was my first attempt here. So the tree that was pruned and normalized for the Frimble algorithm. So that means that this tree was massaged in some way that prepared it to be input to that algorithm. So Frimble input tree would be a reasonable solution. It's short enough and it captures it pretty well. But if you need to go shorter, there's another trick that I do where I would say it's a tree, but I would take the first letter of each of these special concept, pruned, normalized, Frimble, and I would make a little contraction, a little abbreviation here, PNF for that, tree underscore PNF. Now, it may not be obvious if you're looking at a big function and you see tree PNF, but it's a cue that somewhere in the beginning of the function, there's this assignment statement that would be easy to find that had all this context. And so probably as you visited this function a few times, it would just become easy to remember what this abbreviation meant. But this is a way to make a really small variable. It doesn't preserve all the context, but it preserves the notion that there's something special about this tree. It's not a generic tree. It's not like there's nothing special about this tree, in other words. Okay. This one may go without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. You can always abbreviate directory with dir. Okay. Now, what if you need a long variable name for context and you just can't do without it? So here I have an argument being passed into this function, and it's this same old long, hairy variable name. And here you can see that this is a short function, so it's not too insulting. But if this was a longer function and this was all over the place, you'd want to change it. But you don't want to rename this argument to be something shorter because you really want somebody who comes along to this function to know that the expectation of this function is that this tree passed in will be pruned and normalized for the Frimble algorithm. You don't want to lose that. So we know we have that here. So are we stuck? No. So what we can do is we can just reset that variable to something shorter for the purposes of this function. So I could shorten it to t, but oh wait, that's probably confusable with time. And again, let's pretend this is a longer function. So let's not go that short. And then tree is better, but we could do even better with tree PNF. And there we go. So that's an example of how we can preserve context coming in, just sacrifice one assignment statement, minimal cost, processing time wise. And here you get the benefit of the rest of the function. You get this nice tight thing that you don't have to challenge your visual cortex with every time you look at it. Okay. In the next video about variable naming, we're going to talk about opening files, file names, and path names.